Hey, what's going on, guys? So, I just wanted to give you a quick tip on effective training. Oftentimes, the most effective training is some of the most simple. People are under the impression that uh, you need complexity. You need complexity to be effective, and you don't. Simplicity is very oftentimes very challenging. Further, it's very challenging to do the simple basic things right at a high level day in and day out, and to not get sidetracked with whatever shiny new object comes along, because people will look at stuff, they'll be marketed to believe that they need this tool or this machine or whatever. And if you look at some of the most successful sport performance programs in the world, what do they all have in common? What do they all do? So I'll give you the answers to those. So what do they all have in common? Well, they all, from an equipment standpoint, they have a barbell and some bumper plates and squat stands and probably a pull-up place to do some pull-ups and some dumbbells, kettlebells maybe. That's about it, right? Like there's just, at the highest level of sport, they don't need all of this stuff. They don't need all of the fancy machines, all of the fancy cable. Like, they just don't need it. Now, are there certain scenarios where it's necessary to use some cables or use a certain piece of equipment? Sure, it's all just tools. I have my guys use a couple machines here and there, but they're for very specific reasons, and we spend the bulk of our time doing things where we're standing, right? Where we're going to spend time doing. And I'll tell you, to answer the second question, like what do those high level programs do? Well, they all in some capacity are going to squat, deadlift, push things over their heads, maybe do some bench here and there. They'll pull things horizontally. They'll pull their body to something and like a chin up or pull up, some derivative that way. They'll carry things, and outside of, and then they'll probably do some sort of Olympic lift. They'll do a jump. They'll do a throw, and that's the bulk of what a lot of high level programs do. People are under the impression that it needs to be more complex than that, and I promise you, it does not. There are certainly very specific methods and means of accomplishing these things, but at the end of the day, it's all rooted in those things. So go on Google, check out your favorite organization, your favorite professional organization's performance center, and you will see, again, barbells with squat stands, pull-ups, dumbbells, kettlebells, and probably reverse hyper or something, and that's about it. I mean, there's just not a ton of need for the complexity that I'm seeing on social media as of late, especially when we're looking at effectiveness. So when you're looking to decide on what program you should do, this one or that one, whatever, in some capacity, you should be doing some jumping, some throwing, an Olympic lift derivative of some kind, and then working on the basics of squat, dead, push, pull, carry, some single leg work here and there maybe, and making sure you're doing your conditioning. And your conditioning would be spread across all, zone 2 through 5. But anyway, that's just my little tangent from today, because I've seen a lot of stuff recently where it is just blowing my mind what people are continuing to get pushed and marketed to believe is good for performance. And whether you're talking about performance for an elite level athlete or performance for just your everyday average person, a lot of times it's going to look very similar. It's just going to be, the exercise choice or selection might be slightly different. The intensity might be slightly different, and the volume might be adjusted a bit, but oftentimes it's going to look very similar. There's a friend of mine who works with a lot of very, very, very high level athletes. And I was talking with him one time about some training programs, and you'd be shocked, but some of these athletes don't know how to do push-ups. They don't know how to do goblet squats, and they have never really done chin-ups or pull-ups or dips. And that is what he was working on with these very, very elite athletes. And it's because they are so well developed in their sport that they've never been into the weight room. So some things to think about there. If they're starting there, they were just scratching the surface. And that was a couple years ago. I'm sure at this point they're more into some basic barbell work, but everybody starts at the same level one, right? Like everybody's starting with basic movement competencies. Can you do that over and over and over again? And once you've proved that you can, then you add a little bit of load. And then when you've exhausted that and you can't hold any more in that position, then you change the exercise. But I'm just blown away by how people continue to overcomplicate this whole process. So if you have any questions specifically, be sure to comment or email me, travis@dhpcoaching.net, and be sure to check out dynamichp.net for more. Have a good night.